Social media, this was again 2019 and it still had been around and coming on fast and furious. Instagram hadn't surpassed Facebook, if you will. So once we had those sound bites, the digital content desk was sending out push alerts to the app, sending out tweets, Facebook, to drive the viewers to the newscast at 4, 5, and 6. And the name of the game in news is more viewers, better ratings, more advertising. The same thing applies to a business who's trying to do lead generation.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. Your host here, Alessandro Cutri, joined today by Craig Lucie, the founder and CEO over at Lucie. We'll be diving into his story today, a little bit about how he got his start with his company and his background, and some engaging insights into the industry. So definitely make sure to stick around. But without further ado, I'll kind of just pass it on over to you, Craig. If you could just introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background and what was it that prompted you to start Lucie?
Well, Alessandro, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be on your podcast. So I've watched a couple of them. You guys have a good thing going on.
Thank you,
Yeah,
man.
so I in my previous life, I was a news anchor and reporter. I went to SMU in Dallas, Texas, and was a broadcast journalism major there. So back in the day, this is how it worked. You'd start in the small markets and you'd work your way up to the top. So I started in Corpus Christi, which was market 128. And to give you an idea about markets, market one would be New York, LA two, I think Philly is three, Chicago's four. And so you kind of learn your chops, get in front of the camera, screw up on live TV,
Yeah.
and you can learn the hard way, but it's just, as with anything, it's just practicing and getting your reps in. So did that for a while, and then after that I went to a Fox station in Austin. After that I went to NBC out of Orlando, and then came to Atlanta in 2011 and worked for the ABC affiliate. And it was really cool because we were almost like a mini network and traveling all over and covering big stories. And I started seeing a shift in just the industry in general, but I was super passionate about it, still am. Love reading the news, watching the
Yeah.
news, and all that, and all those things. But what I found is, as a journalist, we were getting a lot of news releases, press releases sent to us, and they were phenomenal stories.
Yeah.
But the old saying in local news, if it bleeds, it leads. There is some truth to that. So we wouldn't necessarily cover their stories. So I was like, why are these companies not just covering this themselves?
Uh-huh.
And so that was where the idea was born, is let's go in and really do some impact company storytelling. And we always say if it's good enough, they will come, they being journalists. So I think there's an opportunity to take own media and turn it into earned media.
Mm.
You just have to have the right strategy behind it.
Yeah, and I love that you had to start as the anchor and the reporter, and you obviously you saw the problem that was. I think those are some of the best companies that come and start as they see the problem firsthand, right? And then they go to build something, or they go to have services that can address that specific problem that they were seeing within the market, right? And obviously, one of the things that consistently came up for you guys. Now, when it comes to some clients that you've helped, right? Just so that people can kind of get an idea of some of those things that you guys do over at Lucie. What are some examples of either, you don't have to, drop names here, but what are some examples of clients that you guys have been able to help before kind of working with you, and some of the transformation they received after, you guys being able to work together?
Yeah, sure. And I'll tie this back into kind of my news background and explain how this works and give you an example. So in news, as a reporter and anchor, we would have our editorial meetings in the morning. And that's where the reporters were sitting down with the managers and the producers, and we're pitching our story. If they like our story, we'd go out and do it. So as soon as I went out in the field, found a story, I was sending those sound bites back to the digital content team, and actually
Hmm.
recruited George Marshallek, who's our COO.
Yeah.
He's been with me since day one, and said, look, like, this model will apply to any businesses. It's creating the content and then leveraging the content. And so, and then social media, this was again 2019 and it still had been around and coming on fast and furious. Instagram hadn't surpassed Facebook, if you will. So once we had those sound bites, the digital content desk was sending out push alerts to the app, sending out tweets, Facebook, to drive the viewers to the
Hmm.
newscast at 4, 5, and 6. And the name of the game in news is more viewers, better ratings, more advertising. The same thing applies to a business who's trying to do lead generation. It just depends on
Yeah.
what they're, maybe they're trying to promote a big event. Like you got to hit the right audience and get
Yeah.
them in mass numbers.
Yeah.
And then we, because of our background, we trademarked this, but it's called Create Your News. So, and
Hmm.
Alessandra, an example of this is we have a client, they were doing a big development and we were under NDA and couldn't say anything. But as soon as that big development announcement was made, they were
Yeah.
like, who are we going to pitch this to? We said, we're not going to pitch it to anybody. And they're like, not the AJC, the Atlanta Journal Constitution, the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I said, nope, nope, nope. We are going to interview the CEO. We're going to
Mm.
interview folks in the community. We're going to talk about the economic impact. We're going to take these renderings, bring them to life, and then we're going to drop that story from your own social media channels. And
Mm.
what happens is when you're talking about a development that's going to basically take what was a concrete jungle and make it, bring in jobs and it's been a sleepy town historically, revitalize that area, they're going to come. Again, they being journalists. So in that case, we dropped that story, talked about the economic development, and then the Atlanta Journal Constitution reached out, the Business Chronicle, all of the broadcasters showed up. They wanted to do live shots from that particular location. Now, when it comes to broadcasts, we always say we know how they think, how they're going to deliver, what's going on in
Yeah.
their heads, because we were one of them. They're not
Yeah.
going to take a VNR, a video news release, which in essence, that's what it was. But what they will do is say, we want to come get video, sure. I know you're tight on time. Here's the interview with the CEO, or we'll make him available. Here's
Uh-huh.
all the other B-roll. Here's the renderings if you want it, and they'll package it. Print journalists, though, they're after that CTR, that click-through rate. They'll take that video, and this happened. They embed the video, so you're in
Yeah.
complete control of your message. And then, like any good journalist does, they're writing down, I mean, they're getting both sides and doing their story. So instead of giving control of your narrative to someone else,
Mhm.
you are in control of the message, you are dropping it,
Yeah.
and it will get, again, own media can become earned media if done the proper way.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting concept, right? And it's one of those things where, it, I can see that the value when it comes to being able to tie those pieces together, right? It's almost like this perfect harmony that you're trying to assemble here, right? Of releasing everything and having that strategy behind things. And a lot of times, to your point, a lot of business owners will come in and you'll be like, why aren't they being covered, right? Why isn't this, why aren't more people talking about this, right? And I love that, what you guys are doing in the sense that you guys have laid out here. Would there be like, just, out of curiosity, like, would there be a specific example that you can think of, like somewhere that you've helped, a company, specifically, and what you were able to do with them?
Yeah, this I mentioned we do some work in the wealth management space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And wealth management is interesting because it's not like a client is going to come to their website and be like, yeah, if they're a high net worth individual, let me give them $5 million. Like
yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah,
gonna, it's normally they're at a cocktail party and someone says, ma'am, my my guy or my girl is just killing it. And then they go do their due diligence, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So an example for a wealth management company we worked with, they really knew the compensation packages of executives with Delta and Accenture. And so we created content more catered to that audience. And then we were able to target the executives at those companies.
mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn has all these different partnerships, with the Wall Street Journal or whatnot.
Yeah,
So that particular video campaign that we did, the Accenture CEO actually saw it while on the Wall Street Journal website. It was fed up to him.
hmm.
Saw that that wealth manager knew the compensation, the packages well. He knew what he was talking about and actually called the wealth manager and said, I saw that LinkedIn ad, and it comes across not as an ad, it's more of organic, valuable content.
Yeah,
Said, I would like to invite you to a conference with all of my executives.
yeah,
So suddenly we've gone from, I want to target these Accenture executives to now being in a room full of all these different prospects. So,
yeah,
I mean, that was a great case study
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
us when you are, we always say two keywords, humanize and resonate. So
Yeah.
it's weird to say that you want to humanize somebody, but in a wealth manager's case, a video can create wonders because we're in Atlanta. A lot of people go to are graduates of UGA, Georgia.
Yeah.
People are not reading like they used to, but they will scroll through and they'll watch a video.
Yeah.
So if they're not reading, I always say it's a mugshot with a bio. But if you throw a video and they like their demeanor on camera, and then they talk about, well, I have, a wife and kids and dog. I was a graduate of UGA. Well, that prospective client might have gone to UGA and said, "Oh, I didn't realize he was a Georgia Bulldog. I need to call this guy." So
Yeah.
that's just creating, you're humanizing someone, and but the content
100%.
is resonating with the audience.
Yeah, it's so important, Craig, right? And I hope a lot of people can take away what you just said because it's really gold, right? It's all about when it comes to marketing, especially when it talking to wealth management firms or even people that have a relationship based sell, right? Where it's more on a relationship side of things. It's not transactional where it's low ticket, right? It's like a
Right,
$1,000 deal, whatever it may be, right? You need to develop a relationship with this person. That's typically why, to your point, right? It's like you typically get referred to the people within those types of companies, right? It's just how things kind of work. And so your approach when it comes to it's very similar to our methodology and what and how we've always thought about things is how can you build those relationships? And really those are the types of companies that start to win long term is when they're focusing on how can we humanize, right? How can we put that video content out there that's going to resonate with folks and show you that you're beyond chat GPT, right? You're not just like a chat
right.
GPT written article, but you're actually a person that's talking. So I love that you bring up those points on that itself. But I did want to ask you because you've now been inside of this space now for quite a while, right? You've been inside the journalism, the media space. What are
Right.
some of the trends that you're kind of noticing that's maybe happening right now within the industry?
Well, I mean, a lot. It's you can just see like the viewing habits of people and where they're consuming their news. I mean, are they consuming it through broadcasts? Are they watching cable? I mean, you can look at the charts and way back when the cable chart was like this.
Yeah,
Cable chart's going down like this. Look,
isn't
look
that
what's
crazy?
going on over
Yeah,
at CNN. I mean, they're just laying off people left and right. And I think that again, it goes back to why we created the company in 2019. It's if you are creating your news, and that is just being present, engaging, having a voice, then you are able to collaborate. Another example is if you're pushing out a story with your company and someone's involved with it, let's say uh, either it's an individual or another company and they're involved in it. Let's say you have a charitable run, okay? And your sponsors are Coca-Cola. I'm going to throw out some Atlanta companies, Coca-Cola, UPS, Chick-fil-A. And you are the charity and you're doing a recap event of your charitable run or whatever. You can collaborate with Coca-Cola, UPS, and Chick-fil-A. Well, guess what? Those accounts have millions of followers. So instead of like heading up and sending out traditional press releases, come cover our event, there's a finite amount of people that are consuming that content in the traditional ways. Now
yeah,
you're able to collaborate and reach a far, far larger audience through collaboration and tapping into other social media networks than what you were, able to do 8 years ago. So,
yeah,
it's the news is, I mean, it's been going through a process. We still believe in local news, and you got to cover your local community and get hyper local with it.
yeah,
But the younger generation, I mean, they are consuming their news through Instagram, TikTok, you name
yeah.
it, following those accounts. I mean, we see it like we see broadcasters and in the cable companies live streaming to platforms like Instagram. I
Isn't
mean, they're
that
having to
nuts?
go where the people are. So
Yeah,
it's the trends are always video. We always say video is the new language. Video's not necessarily new, but it truly is right. Like the trend now, if you are not creating constant videos, you are behind. We see it every day with people scrolling on their phones, and we're taught as journalists too, like use your best sound first. Like you got to hit them, and it
yeah,
doesn't have to be a 2-minute piece. It can be a 15-second piece, a 30-second piece. And people are
Right on the
getting
money.
super savvy
Yeah.
with these ads on Instagram. Like it might be a 7-second ad and it leaves you wanting more, and then it takes you through the steps. Like I've gone through those steps just to, from a business owner to find out how good is their funnel. And
Funnel
man,
hacking.
I've gone through the steps. They called me within like 5 minutes. I said, that's where you got to be.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So, I
you're
mean,
so
there's all
right.
sorts of trends I could talk about, but the younger generation is certainly changed. Even like my mom, she's on Instagram and consuming all of that content. My mother-in-law sending me stuff, so they're not consuming it like they used to.
Definitely. And you're so spot on because I think that's, and if we even talk about, political campaigns, right? And you look at even what Trump did in his in his campaign, he was doing a lot of podcasts, right? He was doing it was something that was very unconventional from the traditional, campaign route that has kind of been, predominantly used right throughout the political landscape. And so Trump was taking advantage of, a lot of these social media platforms, especially YouTube, and going on these podcasts, and I feel that was really what probably won the election for him, right? Because we're now consuming more and more through the video style content, through the podcast, through these long forms, right? This is something that we're moving towards as a as a society, and where things are going, and especially given the fact that with the rise of ChatGPT and these all this different AI, it's going to become easier and easier to write an article and easier to write something, right? Because of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not going to get you 100% of the way there, but the technology at this point is really, really good to where it gets you 75, 80% of the way there. And so what's something that you can't replicate and something that you can't, have not yet, there won't be an AI avatar just yet that's as good as you, but it's the video style content, right? It's people being able to see you, being able to trust you, being able to, hear about your story, all the things that you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's great that you guys are having this Grow It podcast.
Yeah,
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 it's known as the podcast selection, and
yeah,
Trump gave a shout out to his son Barron about it. So
yeah,
I think that you just got to know when is it a short form piece of content you want to push out, and should that be a drip campaign toward your longer form? But to your point, yeah, like people really those, that particular podcast with Trump was 3 hours long. You can really get to know somebody spending that kind of time, and when we're not talking in news sound bites. And
yeah,
that's also like the frustrating thing with news is there's so many phenomenal, great journalists, but there's some bad actors out there that are taking sound bites out of context.
yeah,
Like 60 Minutes was in trouble for taking that answer that Kamala Harris gave and giving and putting up a different answer. And
yeah,
so we're watching like
yeah,
that stuff, it's wild to see all this stuff kind of come to light, and having been in the news and then being out of the news and being kind of in the PR marketing world and looking at it from an outsider in when I was, on the other side, it's fascinating. But I think that, just like what you guys are doing, we do it, having the podcast really
yeah,
giving people valuable information that they can then use for their business is great. I mean, because there's
yeah,
countless of like wonderful business podcasts out there. But if we want to go back to the politics, like we do work with politicians. They understand the create your news. We had one of them say, I had ABC News this week invite me to come on their show. Why would I do that? Because they're going to ambush me. I have my news crew right here. And guess what? When they're pushing out that content on their X handles and all the other social media platforms, they're reaching a huge audience. Not
yeah,
to mention all of their followers pushing it out for them. So
yeah.
the game is just changing and evolving at a rapid pace.
Definitely, definitely. And so, we get a lot of founders and CEOs that tune in to the show, Craig, and they're always curious about kind of, what they should be doing in terms of marketing perspective, how they should be getting their name out there. What's some actionable things that you can, give as advice to, a lot of CEO founders that are looking, maybe they've done things at a, foundational level, but they're looking to start to kind of do more. What are some of the things that you would recommend for them to start doing?
This, it's been one of my goals to do more podcasts and get in front of the camera more because, I've been in the building phase for quite a while. And so we talked about it earlier. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It's all relationships, letting people get to know you. Who are you as a person? What are your core beliefs? For instance, I was at a conference just yesterday, a tourism conference here in Georgia, and we
Mhm.
had a booth and everything else. The booths, they're empty. Like the booths is that's not what sells you. What sells you is you going and introducing yourself, talking to that person, following up with them, caring about what in the world they have going on in their life, and then establishing that relationship.
Yeah.
As we know, like for to get business, it can take a while, but you have to have that relationship. And so you have to have the icebreakers. And I talk
Yeah.
about like the funnel, like what I'm seeing on Instagram. Like we're going to do some of that stuff. But
Yeah.
when you get someone on the phone like they did, okay, I mean, they're pretty aggressive. There's a fine line about how aggressive that you need to be. But
Definitely.
there's a human connection when you're actually talking with someone and they're not just filling out a form. Like
Yeah.
we spoke to each other, or like COVID killed it, but like prior to COVID, I was nonstop doing coffees and lunches.
Yeah.
Now, and it's hard to get people to commit to a coffee or a lunch, but
Yeah.
it's also like get them to do it. Like at least you're getting out and about and you're not stuck. We always say there's no news in the newsroom. I mean, there's no business in your office. You have
Yeah.
to get out there. And then,
Yeah.
just listen to more podcasts like the one that we're creating right now. You can glean so much great information from what other founders are doing, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. So I would say, get out there, put yourself out there.
Yeah, I love it, and I think that that's the probably a perfect note to end here, Craig. It's been an absolute pleasure having the chance to speak with you, hear a little bit more about your story. If you guys are obviously listening to this, taking some of that actionable advice that Craig is giving, because I think that is the stuff that's going to take you from just having a small mom and pop or something that's just a smaller business to taking it to the next level, is doing more things, right? Getting your name out there, going to meeting people, because at the end of the day, how are you building more relationships? That's how you should always be thinking about it. Craig, if people are listening to this and they're like, hey, I want to reach out to Craig, I want to hear what they do and how they could potentially help us, what are some good ways to go ahead and find you, man?
Yeah, well, thank you for the shout out there. Through our website, it's luciecontent.com. On X, I'm at Craig Lucie, along with Facebook, LinkedIn as well. Our LinkedIn, if you type in Lucie, will pop up immediately. And even if we're not doing business, just reach out. We give free advice all the time. A lot of people, we do crisis training and executive media training, and I have executives call me all the time like, hey, I've got this interview coming up on Fox, like what do I need to do? So
Yeah.
whatever it is that someone has on their mind, feel free to reach out. Happy to help.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to include those in the description for you guys to be able to go check out. If you did make it all the way to the end, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Go check out Craig and the team over there and what they're doing at Lucie. They are Grow IT endorsed. We hope you guys have a great day. Thanks again, Craig. It's been an absolute pleasure, man.
All right, thank you, and thank you to all the listeners as well.